28 minutes off to the 8-hour mark. How are you doing? It's morning. And just to remind you quickly that you can invest at 8:15 a.m. Once it clicks 8:15 a.m., the markets on Zabu will definitely be open for you. Dial *292#. Follow the prompts. If you do not have an account yet with Zabu, definitely use your NIN, and in the next 24 hours, you will be able to invest in bonds and securities. So as possible as tomorrow, Wednesday, you will be able to definitely invest. So there is definitely no hassle for you if you are to definitely invest in bonds and securities. Tell you what, it is as simple as that according to Zabu. Zabu says, my money, my future. Select any bond or any security that you choose, and the preferred maturity for your bond is something that you can select with the comfort of your smartphone. Now, *292# for the MTN subscribers. The markets open at 8:15 a.m. These particular markets do close at the same particular bracket in there, 3:15 a.m. Mondays to Fridays. These markets are open during working days, but they are closed during public holidays. So that means during public holidays and weekends, you are not going to be able to invest, but the other days you're free. Altex East Africa, that part, Zabu says do something new, and Zabu, the platform, says my money, my future. All right, now off to Karibu, East Africa. We start with Kenya. Now, the Daily Monitor had just broken out news here that that out of the working Ugandans, out of the 100% of the Ugandans, remember earlier on, a report was released that 10% earn above 1 million. Now, today, the report says 60% of those earn 200,000 Ugandan shillings. Now, if I'm to break down for you, I was doing some simple calculation according to the current exchange rate. For the Kenyans, if you're to put this into Kenyan shillings, it would approximately be around 6,800 Kenyan shillings. So that is an average month for most of the Ugandans. Now, on the other hand, the Kenyans' average monthly income has climbed to 20,123 Kenyan shillings. Now, that is approximately, roughly 600,000 Ugandan shillings in that region. So it does differ. 600,000, that is the average monthly income. Now, the average monthly income of a Ugandan salary in regards is around 200,000 Ugandan shillings to 250,000 Ugandan shillings. That is as well close to around 8,000 Kenyan shillings in that aspect. Now, the average monthly income for Kenyans rose at the fastest pace in 6 years to 20,123 Kenyan shillings following recovery from COVID-19 economic hardships and changes that reflect the growing pay inequality. The Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics data shows that the country's annual gross national income per capita grew 11.6% to hit 241,467 Kenyan shillings. That is approximately $1,979 last year. That is up from the 216,337, approximately 1,773,000 in 2020. So if we are to look at the measure of average income, which captures money earned from both the formal and informal sectors, however, it does reveal that the deep wealth and earnings inequality in Kenya, on the other hand, has left the country within a middle class and super earners, with the majority remaining stuck in the lower income bracket. So the GNI estimates that the total amount of money earned by individuals and businesses in a country in a set period and is considered as an alternative which is measurable to gross domestic product. This also further estimates the total value of all goods and services produced within the region or within a period. Now, in Kenya, for example, income rose at a faster pace last year as business reopened or resumed fully activity after the contraction in 2020 when COVID-19 containment measures restricted economic activity and slashed hundreds of thousands of jobs. Now, Kenya's economy did rebound to grow 7.5% in 2021 compared to a contraction of 0.3% a year earlier, largely boosted by the recovery in key sectors with the exception of agriculture. Now, the GNI per capita of 241,467 Kenyan shillings. That is roughly 1,979 US dollars, or 20,123 monthly, has improved Kenya's rankings since the World Bank upgraded the country to a lower middle income classification from the least developed countries, that is the LDCs, in 2015 when it stood at $1,310. Now, the lower middle income classification demands that countries' annual income range from $1,046 to $4,125. A higher income ranking means Kenya cannot benefit from some aid designed for the poorest countries, according to what economists have revealed. Now, conversely, investors may be more attracted to a nation with a population that has more cash to spend. Kenya's economy has grown on average by 5% annually over the last decade, save for the COVID-19 contraction, but the benefits of this one have not been equally distributed, and the gap between the rich and the poor is surprisingly rising now. The rich are really rich now, the poor are really poor. Same situation coming in here in Uganda. Now, the number of super rich in Kenya is among the fastest growing within the East African Community region. If you're to look at the real rich people in Kenya, or what people call the big boys in Kenya, are quite many. Yet, while a minority of Kenyans are accumulating wealth, the benefits of economic growth have not trickled down. And according to the earlier report by the Kenyan Flight Inequality Alliance, just 8,300 individuals in Kenya own the same wealth as the rest of the country's over 45 million people. And the richest 10% earn 23 times more than the poorest 10%. The majority of the 2.9 million individuals that are employed in the formal sector are domiciled in the lower wage brackets, with only 358,833 or 15% earning more than 100,000 per month. So that is the case bracket in there. Now, also on the other hand, Rwanda is set to benefit from liberalized air transport market, as we continue to give you more updates. Now, expectations are high behind the single African air transport market, an initiative which is aimed at, among others, creating a single unified air transport market within Africa. Once operational, if you look at this new route should be easier to launch without need of the reciprocal services. And 17 African countries, including Rwanda, out of a total of 35 signatories, 80% of the existing aviation market in Africa have now agreed to test this particular initiative. The 17 airlines will now open their air transport markets to each other as part of a new project implementation pilot expected to kick off this very week. And this could eventually generate around $4.2 billion in additional gross domestic product, with over 600,000 new jobs, a 25 and as well as a 27% reduction in fares. And it will as well make a contribution to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, according to what reports have indicated. Now, also on the other hand, this could eventually have Rwanda in particular, after participating in the pilot plan, getting an opportunity to pave the way for connectivity or access to new markets for national carrier Rwanda Air, like other African airlines. And that is something that most of the African airlines and the aviation sector in Africa will choose to actually work upon to at least recover the sector that was terribly hit just a few weeks back. The pilots and the air hostesses and hostesses within the Kenya Airways had gone on strike. Reason being, their salaries had not been enhanced and had not been increased. So that is some of the key things that this particular single African air transport market will definitely clear off, if you look at that. Lastly, from Karibu, East Africa, we switch to our neighbors in the north. South Sudan has failed to pull its weight in the East African community amid missed deadline. Now, 6 years since South Sudan was initiated into the East African community bloc, domestic problems, including weak institutions, have eaten into its will to integrate, leaving neighbors feeling the burden of South Sudan. South Sudan gained independence from Sudan in 2011, but plugged into a civil war 3 years later. And today, even at relative peace, it has been constantly on the brink of war. By joining the East African Community, leaders argued back in 2016 that the country could tap into regional support, including the safety of neighbors with whom it could trade and improve lives. Instead, it has been a humanitarian burden and needing food aid and refuge for its fleeing citizens who have been moving to various countries in Uganda, Kenya, and the neighboring. Then the country has failed to implement the customs union and the common market protocols, two of the basic pillars of the East African Community. In fact, more than 18 months since he was appointed, the South Sudanese minister in charge of East African Community Affairs, Deng Alol Kawol, is yet to set foot in Arusha, the East African Community headquarters, where the council meets regularly to make decisions. So South Sudan applied for the East African Community membership in 2011, but the process of admission was delayed for a number of reasons, key among them internal conflicts. Now, the country would be admitted during the 17th Ordinary Heads of State Summit in Arusha on February 2nd, 2016. So when we look at the missed deadlines here, in Juba, delays in ratification of protocols and non-implementation of ratified protocols have combined to impair the smooth enforcement and execution of East African Community plans. So the block decisions requiring amendments to national laws have often remained outstanding for a long time. And in terms of trade integration, the customs union is operational within the East African Community, except in South Sudan, which is yet to fully meet the accession requirements to the East African Community. It has missed the deadlines twice, and the DRC will have at least 3 years to operationalize the customs union to ensure that this does not happen to them, but the same as it's happening with South Sudan. And that's it for Karibu East Africa. Now we head to the SMB International News. With the SMB International News, we start with Sierra Leone on the African continent, as the gas shortages have forced taxi drivers to turn to the black market in Sierra Leone. Now, long queues are still being experienced at major petrol stations in Sierra Leone as the West African country grapples with high gas prices and scarcity. The gas prices have nearly doubled compared to the previous year to 1.14 US dollars, but with shortages at gas stations, taxi drivers riding motorcycles or tricycles, called kekes, are forced to turn to the black markets, where the price is even higher. This has now forced them to increase fare prices. Despite being legal, gas from the black market costs 50% than at petrol stations, an increase that motorists like taxi drivers have to direct to their customers by increasing the transport fares to meet these unfair gas prices within Sierra Leone. Just like the rest of the world here, Sierra Leone is also faced with high inflation and a dwindling economy. In August, a protest against economic hardship in Freetown, Sierra Leone, descended into clashes between the security forces and the youth, demanding the president to resign amid the struggling economy. And that is one of the key challenges that the African continent has been facing over the last few months of 2022. And most of the governments did come up with subsidies, unlike those countries. Uganda did not choose to. Well, here fuel prices have stabilized around 5,000 Ugandan shillings, 5,200, 5,300, 5,600 maximally, but not most of them clicking to 6,000. No, but then it is not ideally going to go back to 4,000 Ugandan shillings if you're to look at that. But that is something that is becoming hard for those dealing in the transportation sector within Sierra Leone, as most of them have now chosen to look for alternatives in the black market. Surprisingly, the black markets are even more expensive than the ideal fuel gas stations in Sierra Leone. Well, away from Sierra Leone now, let's look at a World Bank projection for Nigeria's economy. Now, the World Bank has come out to release a statement that it would take Nigeria 300 years to build world-class infrastructures, according to the World Bank. The World Bank recently just assessed Nigeria's capacity to build the kind of infrastructure it is currently seeking funding for from the World Bank. The assessment shows that Nigeria's current level of infrastructure is low, and it will take quite a long journey to get it to where it needs to be. It also noted that there is a huge discrepancy with the country's level of borrowing and its infrastructures. The Nigerian government has in the past justified its borrowing expenditure by asserting that funds would be used to build state-of-the-art infrastructure. Now, last month, the president of the country, Muhammad Buhari, explained his rationale behind the Nigerian government is borrowing, stating that it's imperative that the infrastructure are built to create more opportunities to grow the Nigerian economy, and for this to happen, the government needs external aid. However, the World Bank has disclosed Nigeria's physical infrastructure gap would likely reach $3 trillion in the next 30 years. And at this rate, it would take the country 300 years to close the infrastructure gap, which would cost the country 4% of its annual gross domestic product. So the report also discloses that Nigeria's development outcomes were among the lowest globally. Then Nigeria's debt burden currently stands at about 66.61 trillion naira, including a 23.77 trillion naira from the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and 42.84 trillion naira from the domestic and foreign creditors in Nigeria, the West African economy in there from the from the African perspective. Well, if Nigeria is said to take 300 years to have the infrastructure it needs, it will pose a question to me, how about that from the East African Community regions? Lastly, from the international news, meanwhile, we head to Taiwan, as Taiwan is now working upon a frontline battle against mobile money fraud. Will this be possible? The telecom security boss Jeff Kuo says that the fight in mobile phone fraud is a consistent battle and that Taiwan is now at the front line of it. So Kuo is boss of Taiwanese firm Gogolok, which owns Wasco, one of the most popular spam blocking apps on the island across East Asia and across East Asia in general. So it says its artificial intelligence powered software constantly trolls more than 1.6 billion telephone numbers, both Taiwanese ones and also ones from across Asia and other parts of the world, to block messages and calls from likely fraudsters. So working with Taiwanese Criminal Investigation Bureau 165 anti-fraud program, Wasco blocked more than 52.3 million scam messages and 13.1 million scam calls last year in Taiwan alone. Let me put this back for you. Wasco blocked more than 52.3 million scam messages and 13.1 million scam calls last year in Taiwan. I pretty much guess some of us have received these calls from scammers, someone saying, I'm working with this company and please send, input your PIN, and then apparently you're going to lose some funding. So, but why is Taiwan such a hotbed for telecoms fraud? You would wish to understand. Because according to Kuo, who is the boss of Taiwanese firm Gogolok, he says that the island's small population of 23.5 million makes it a perfect practice ground for organized criminals. Now, both Taiwanese gangs and those from mainland China and elsewhere are looking at it as an opportunity to evade from the internet space or from the virtual space. Now, they try out a new phone scam in Taiwan, and if it works, then they can expand it across Asia and then globally. So Taiwan is more of a benchmarking country whereby they test to see whether this scam will work or not. Now, the scammers would then ask for money for information. Others, such investment scams would see people receiving phone messages from friendly strangers offering loans at very low rates, yet they are going to lose their money. Such is the extent of the criminal networks behind the scamming that some Taiwanese gangs have opened up operations overseas. And according to some of the points to one case from 2020, there is one case when 92 Taiwanese people were arrested in Montenegro. In other cases, Taiwanese people are lured overseas to countries such as Cambodia under the false promise of higher wages, where they are forced to work against their will as telephone fraudsters. So it is something that is global. If you're to look at that, I think it's now becoming a global pandemic of scammers with the ever growing cashless economy across the world. This is something that most of us need to be very cautious about in regards to scammers online or online fraud that has actually led to most of the people losing billions. Ugandans annually loses close to 15 billion Ugandan shillings due to online scammers and internet fraud. So that clearly shows you what it means to lose that amount of money and why the Taiwanese government is at the front line to make sure that this battle of scammers, online fraud comes to an end. Surely it is something that they are entirely working on to definitely make sure that people get to know of the online scam and to see how they're actually going to be fighting this battle of scammers online and the ongoing growing internet fraud. Well, that's it for Karibu East Africa and the SMB International News this morning. Get us on mainstream channel 372 on DSTV. The Go TV is channel 394. Our YouTube channel is SMART24 TV Live. We are streaming live. And you can definitely remember to subscribe onto that to definitely get notifications popping up onto your different devices to remind you of any program that you missed or any update that is coming up in regards to the world of business. Well, pretty much also on the other platforms like your TV, you can get Smart24 TV onto it and definitely watch us wherever you are. And do remember to also follow us on other social media platforms: Twitter, Smart24 TV, and Facebook, Smart24 TV Official. Instagram is Smart24_TV. The website is www.smart24.tv. So for more business information and business updates, please ensure that you take part of that in regards to business, and as well as LinkedIn, Smart24 TV. I'm Jerome Paul Sanko, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Well, when I do return after the break at 8 a.m., what I do have for you, I've got business tips and business quotes to enlighten your day and motivate you through this Tuesday morning. But not only that, we're going to be looking at our social media trends as they have been happening across the timeline in Uganda. But not only that, we've got more updates coming up from the world of business. So that and more coming up at 8 a.m. Not only that, the sports, business and entertainment economics still on the way. Good morning.